This is the Better Ottawa Municipal Panel. Today is Halloween, Friday, the 31st of October. My name is Neil Sarvandamutu. I'm joined as always by Joanne Kianello and John Willing. Hello.
Guys. Hello.
Talking about the scariest topic at the city right now. How appropriate.
Yes.
Joanne,
I'm also joined by my sparkly pumpkin, which I think is throwing off the lighting of this video, but I would like to say I've had this pumpkin for 20 years. It will never die, which I'm glad, because it really keeps me a lot of company in the dark days of, the waning daylight of the late fall. I actually hate to put it away in November, to be honest.
Yep. So, John, you've got a young child. Will you be out trick-or-treating tonight in the rain?
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm looking as we record the pod now, guys. It's raining pretty good down here in west of downtown. So it's gonna be a wet night. Planning to wear garbage bags, possibly. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a lightning round of trick or treating tonight too. I'm not sure, but this is not like
game.
There's a baseball game we need to get back for. It's not going to be like last year. I think last year's Halloween, guys, was super nice, right? Mm-hmm. People are outside on their porches, and so this is quite different. I'd prefer it to snow, actually, than have this type of weather on Halloween night.
Yeah, wet is hard for kids. It's miserable.
Yeah.
I also hope I get some trick-or-treaters, because I bought 100 pieces of candy, and I would like to not eat 90 of them. So please, I hope they come.
You get?
Or the kids who do come are getting 20 pieces each, I'm going to say right now. So come on to my house.
I hope you don't give out one little chocolate bar there.
That's right.
Handfuls, Joanne.
Yes,
handfuls.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I got lots of Halloween candy. I'm actually hoping that it'll be a slow night and I get to eat all that candy myself over the next number of months.
Okay. I'm unplugging now because I think it's throwing off my lighting, but here we go.
Okay.
Oh, all
right. So let's talk Lansdowne. Lansdowne 2.0 went to committee this week, and there were fireworks. We had 2 days of public consultations, followed by questioning of staff. And at the end of the discussion, so committee agreed to send this on to council, and it'll go to council next Friday. But the big story for day one was all around the Ottawa Charge. So, of course, the Charge have been the incredibly successful professional women's hockey league that has not been in Ottawa for very long, but plays at Lansdowne. So, John, can you get us started? The PWHL came to committee to speak. What did they have to say? Did you find those arguments compelling? And when you're done, Joanne, I'm going to turn to you and ask, what was the reaction from councillors and the mayor?
I thought the PWHL team was great. Jenna Hefford was there, who is like a hockey superstar in this nation. I think Hall of Famer. And also Amy Shear, who is a big sports executive with great experience in North America as well. So these are like heavyweights from the league and from kind of the sporting sphere of the continent. So I thought they were great. They were out to, I think, in part win the hearts and minds of councillors with the Charge being in Ottawa and being super successful and talking about the importance of women's hockey to Ottawa. And you heard some councillors around the table too talk about that they're ticket buyers, or that how important hockey has been to their family as well. So I mean, this is an opportunity for the PWHL. By the way, as we know, they came out after the pod last week and said that this arena is not going to be big enough for them. So that's their main beef, is that they don't think this arena will suit their needs of the growing, what they hope is a growing league over the years to come. So that's a huge concern. They feel like, it sounds like too, they feel like they were strong-armed out of the conversation about the arena. I know Amy Shear was talking about, the city showed all these stakeholders on a screen in bright colors, but they didn't see PWHL up there. So it makes me kind of question about what's been going on behind the scenes between the talks, if there have been talks between OSEG and PWHL. Interesting, Amy Shear talked about she didn't want to negotiate in public at all, the lease or any of the Lansdowne stuff, because she was challenged a few times by Councillor Laura Dudas about why are we just learning this now about the problem, about the capacity. It's going to be a huge issue for the team and the league. And that's what was the answer. That was the answer we heard from Amy Shear. So anyway, in terms of everything that happened yesterday, notwithstanding your deputations, guys, I thought that the PWHL was definitely the headline item. And I saw that game picked up in the press as well.
Yeah. Everybody was talking about it. Yeah.
Joanne, tell us about the reaction from councillors and from the mayor.
So look, there are some councillors, in particular, as John says, Councillor Laura Dudas, Kathy Curry, to a lesser extent, Catherine Kitts. I think also David Brown asked a question and then the mayor, but I found it very telling that it was the women councillors who are going on the offensive, right? It was like, why are we only hearing about this now? Well, they said, look, like, you're not hearing only about it now. We came out in 2023, 2024 to support Lansdowne 2.0. You asked us to do it. We said yes. We've always told you, we think the arena is too small for us. Even the mayor's office admitted that, yes, since June of 2024, they've been hearing from the charge that the capacity was an issue for them. And they always thought they were going to be like, it was always like, oh, let's talk about this later. We're going to talk about this later. And then they saw the report and like, there seems to be no later. Like, what happened here? And so I guess they're pissed off at that. I don't blame them. They say that, you know, they need a larger arena, but the city has said, oh, if we expand the arena by another like 1,000, 2,000 seats. So just for, I always am looking at my numbers. The arena now is about 9,000 seats. It's going down to approximately 5,800 seats. So, you know, at least 2,000 seats are missing, right? And for them, you know, they're getting near 7,000 people coming on an average day. That's more seats than the new arena will have. But on weekends and on playoff days, they're getting 8,000 plus people coming to their games. So they're saying, look, this is going to have an issue on our revenue. Like, this is a business, you know, we need to make money eventually. It is constricting our ability to grow. We think that this is women's hockey is becoming more and more popular. They so they're upset, but the city has said, look, if we expand this, it's going to cost us $1 million, like, to make a bigger arena. $80 to $1 million.
100 million, yeah.
Yeah,
$100 million. Oh, my apologies. Yeah, $80 to $100 million. And so Laura Duda said to them, do you think it's fair that taxpayers subsidize this business-owned league? It's owned by a billionaire in the U.S. You know, that the taxpayers, a municipally owned facility should subsidize your league. And you're thinking, is there a camera here? Like, what is happening? Like, you've got to be kidding, right? Because of course the whole OSEG thing, it is a whole subsidy for the 67s who are never going to make any money. I mean, they only have 4,000 people who come to the game. Thank you, John, for doing that math. And also the Red Blacks, I think they basically said, we don't know if they're ever going to make any money. That's why we need this whole other deal to keep it going. So anyway, on the attack by Laura Dudas as to, you know, why the city should pay another $100 million to expand the arena, and charges like, look, we're just the tenant. Here's what we need. Like, that's your business, right? And fair enough. The mayor came out to say, look, isn't it true that with less capacity, you're about $1 million short in revenue? And isn't this a negotiating tactic? Like, if we could find you $1 million, would that be better? And I mean, there's probably a bit of truth to that. And I think that Amy Scheer did say, well, yeah, we are going to be $1 million short. And to which I want to say, like, can it also be they're pissed off that it's too small and it's a negotiating tactic? I mean, if they're actually, like, two things can be true at the same time, right? If they know that this arena is going to go ahead, they're like, okay, well, we're not happy about this. We're going to tell people that we're not happy. We don't want to pretend that we went along with it, but we also want to get something out of it so this works for us. I was also really shocked to hear Kathy Curry. She asked some questions. She had played hockey. She loves it. She said something like, I have a quote written down here. I guess I thought when the PHL was created, it was about women's sports. Go to hell. I'm sorry. But it is about women's sport, but women's sport shouldn't make any money or be financially successful. Only men's sports. Like, the questions were completely out of line. And I think there was a little posturing on both sides. I do think the PWHL is negotiating a new lease, and this might be helpful to them, and more power to them. But in the PR world, like, who wins? Oh, the charge wins, right? Like, people are furious at the city and how they were treated. Amy Scheer, she does not need any pity. Like, she can stand up for herself. It's not, but it was quite a thing to watch people go at them. Also, a lovely woman was one of the last delegates, I think, or maybe the first delegate yesterday, the second day. And she was talking about the finances, but she started with saying, I just want you all to know that people believe Amy Scheer. You should just know that, right? Yeah. And so, like, it is like, city loses, charge wins in the bigger discussion on that. So
Okay,
it
so
was really, I was surprised by the vitriol of that discussion. I don't know about you guys.
yeah. Well, you know what, John, I want to hear your take on who won the PR battle here too. But before you answer that, I just want to pick up on that point about billionaires, right? And you know, Kathy Curry and David Brown and perhaps others said your team is owned by the owner of the LA Dodgers and multi-billionaire, and why aren't you paying for our stadium upgrade? Basically, was what they were saying. I mean, do they not see the irony of the statement when they've got Roger Greenberg, the billionaire owner of OSEG, sitting down at the other end of the council table?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we all had a good chuckle. So we're all talking about rich people, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the weird thing the city's in. It's like double edged. Like the city has the asset, right? The thing that people need to play in. And they have no real control over the businesses that come in and their requirements. So, like, whether you're the CFL franchise owner, the PWHL owner, the owner of the basketball team that comes in, the professional Canadian basketball team that comes in, it's like you're caught in the middle of all of these competing interests, and they need a certain size of arena, and they need certain change rooms, they need all this stuff. You're designing to specs based on what other people need, and you don't know really what the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years looks like with this asset, right? And so I find that really tricky. We saw this guys already, play out with the baseball stadium. If you remember back, like just over 10 years ago, this is a big day in baseball in Canada. Where World Series Game 6, but the city was close to getting the Blue Jays AA farm team to come to Ottawa. But the difference there was they needed to spend $40 million on the Ottawa baseball stadium to bring it up to snuff to have pro ball played out of there. And the city at the time said, you know what, whoa, we're not going to do that. For a team that might get like 4,000 to 5,000 people. So they pulled out. So they made a decision on that. But it's another example of how they're caught in the middle of all of these kind of sports interests, rich people. The Sens are going to build a new arena at Le Breton, and who knows what the city, I'm not saying the city's going to
also owned by billionaires
directly, but they're going to have to probably beef up infrastructure around the arena. So they're caught in the middle of all these competing sports, professional sports things happening in the city. And this is just the latest. The PWHL is now the latest. And who knows where the PWHL is going to play in the future? Is it going to be LeBreton Flats? That's what I want to know.
Well, and the mayor suggested you can go there, right? Like the mayor's like, well, maybe you can go to LeBreton. If you're so successful that you outgrow this arena, you can go to LeBreton. We're like,
which makes me wonder.
Treat a tenant.
Which makes me wonder if OSEG needs the PWHL at Lansdowne Park to make things financially viable. If the mayor is out there saying, you know what, you have another arena you can go to, like no one's saying, whoa, we need the charge at Lansdowne. No one's saying that. So I find that really interesting.
Except for the charge fans.
Well, are they? Do they really? Does it matter between Lansdowne or like a site that's about a kilometer away? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. But it's on LRT.
I mean, people who are fans tell me they like a smaller space, right? You're going to be in a place that's like 17,000 people instead of 6,000 to 9,000 people,
it's
right?
It's definitely a difference maker.
And also, too, I noticed that OSEG sidestepped those questions. People did try to get them, right? And they didn't really, they don't want to reveal their finances, I guess. But I don't know. I would think that a regular tenant of that event center would be helpful, especially one that fills all the seats, unlike the 67s, which does not. Yeah, and that's the other thing, too. Like, we haven't talked about who won the PR war, but like it does look like here's sports for old white guys. We're giving them lots of money, and a sport for women and family. And I mean, it's a completely other feeling. No, like that is, I'm not saying that's necessarily completely accurate, but I think that's the sense you're getting from the community. And I am.
So Joanne, do you agree that the charge won the PR battle?
Oh, I said that. I don't know if John agrees.
Well,
John?
I mean, your first speaker said that, or the first speaker of the day said that. So you agree with that?
100%. 100%.
John, how about you? What do you think?
Well, if it's a PR battle between the city OSEG and the charge, there's absolutely. Absolutely. And it's crazy because these are all professional sports, right? These are money-making ventures, whether you're OSEG or the Sens, you're whoever plays at the Ottawa Baseball Stadium, or you're the charge too. Like, and so, I mean, I almost think that like the timing isn't great for the charge, because if they had a few more seasons under the league to really show like a longevity, because I think that's what people are wondering about right now. Like, no doubt about it, the trajectory is up for the team, and I think the league. But if they had a few more seasons just to like to hammer the nail home on that point, I think it would really help them too.
But it's also, and I don't want to talk too much longer about it, but it will change the nature of it too, because the seats will be more expensive, right? And so how will that change the accessibility of it? Because I think that's another thing people love about it, right? You can bring your family, young people go. It's like not like the expensive NHL tickets. And so what will happen when there's a new arena? Like there's a lot of unknowns, right?
Yeah. Look, I agree with the assessment that the charge won the PR battle here, no doubt about it. And the mayor and some of the councillors that went after the charge ended up looking a little petty in the process. Yeah. But having said that, I'm not actually all that confident that much is going to change in the Lansdowne 2.0 proposal vis-a-vis the charge. What I see happening is I could see them staying in the Civic Centre at Lansdowne for as long as that facility is still available. So that's probably for another 2 or 3 seasons while they build the new event center. And then as soon as that stadium at Le Breton, if that ever, assuming that comes online, which is supposed to come online like about 2031, 32. Yes. If it comes online for 2031, I could see them moving there and then just having to figure out what to do in the 5 or 6 years in the interim. A little unfortunate.
And I'm sure Capital Sports would, if they can build it that soon, I'm not sure they can. I'm sure they would be trying to get Charge over as a tenant. Why not? I'm sure they'd like to have more people, in their facility as opposed to Lansdowne.
Okay, 100%. I'll just say,
guys,
quickly.
Yeah,
like this is the time for the Charge to talk to the Sens, because the Sens are designing a new arena completely, just like the city is. So if the Charge wants some amenities in this arena that suit them more than what maybe would have for men's hockey or whatever, now is the time to talk with the Sens. I think.
Billionaire to billionaire.
Okay, let's move to some of the other delegations. So, John, I want you to give your comments on. In fact, my delegation. I was actually the first delegate. Just as a life pro tip here, I always sign up really early because I don't want to be sitting around for 6 hours waiting for everyone to go ahead of me.
Well, and it's a good strategy.
Yeah. I mean, if it's something I know I want to talk about, I sign up before, like the minute I hear that the meeting's going to happen. But what was interesting about my delegation was not so much what I said, but the response that I got from Councillor Stephanie Plante, who was questioning me about basically. The line of questioning was around who was bankrolling me.
I thought she was going to come and ask to go through your bag at some point. Like, it was really quite amazing.
But it was also, it really bled into an issue around, was it permissible or those are my words, but is it permissible for citizens groups to try to criticize councillors, hold them accountable for their actions? That's really where I felt the line of Stephanie's questioning was going. So, John, what's your take on it? Was it appropriate? And what would you say?
I thought it was unusual because it just went off, just kind of went sideways. And so you see this from time to time when people are pushing up against the power brokers wherever. And so in this case, it's City Hall.
Not Neil. What? Neil pushing back against the power brokers.
But people want to know, oh, who's behind you? Who are the people who are who are you paying and who's paying you? And what are you doing with they want to know, Councillor Plante want to know what you're doing with the email addresses you're collecting through Better Ottawa. And they want to know about the infrastructure. They're trying to get at, what are you going to do in the future? What are you doing with this information? They're trying to put the pressure back on the speaker because often it's the speaker questioning them, right? So I've seen this tactic before where the councillors will kind of get their backup or someone and then put the pressure on the speaker. And that's what I saw in your case, Neil. I mean, you asked me the question, but I should be asking you the question, how you felt at the time sitting there.
Well, you know what? Look, I got to be honest. I think it's totally fair for councillors to come after someone like me, especially if I'm going after them in the public, right? So I've been quite critical of Stephanie Plante's position on Lansdowne up until now. And so for her to come after me, totally fair. And
no, not in that way. Go ahead.
No? Well, you explain yourself, Joanne. Why not?
Okay, so first of all, one thing I have to say that while I was watching you, I was thinking is while this is happening, I'm thinking, is Neil thinking of a new video for this? Because he usually takes these things and he weaves them into some very hilarious video. So I look forward to that. Yeah, you know what? She can push back against your views while you're saying this. Maybe one question on Better Ottawa, but your questions about your very valid Substack that you have and this podcast, which she also called negative. I was very, very annoyed by that.
I know, I'm shocked.
I know. The mayor should have stepped in to say, that's not appropriate. This is off topic. Are we talking about Lansdowne? If she wants to question your views on that, that's fine. Of course, push back. But in that personal way, that is not on. Just as I would say, there are people who, delegates who show up and are very personal or say that people are corrupt or whatever. That also has to be shut down. It goes both ways. So, and I think for the mayor, obviously, no love lost between you guys, but even more so, that's a time to show, okay, we are not letting this go on, right? And he did not. So, that should have been shut down a lot earlier. It's one thing to say, okay, you can ask one time about what are you doing with Better Ottawa, but it went on for some time.
Yeah.
In a way that I heard from other councillors are like, what the heck is going on? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what? A number of councillors came up to me afterwards and apologized for the behavior. So,
well, you can't say that people are welcome to come to committee and then show that they're going to be attacked, right? So that's not how it should go.
Okay. Well, you know what, Joanne, let's turn to your delegation, because this was, you mentioned in advance, this was your first delegation that you had made. You said you weren't going to take a side either for or against the proposal, but you wanted to talk about transparency and trust in government. So tell us about the experience and the actual message itself.
Yeah, so I wish I had taken your advice to get there sooner. I decided to actually talk about it when I heard the mayor say, I think it was a scrum after council, that it's not the public's job to dig into the reports. Being a reporter for 30 years, you could imagine that did not go over well with me. So I'm like, no, I'm going to talk about that. And so I was number 45, and it's a long day, right? I was there after 6 p.m. Councillors were very nice to me, but they're tired, right? And it's hard. First of all, I've spoken behind a mic many, many dozens of times, and still I was nervous. Being at that big horseshoe table, I don't know how you felt the first time. I've been in City Hall lots of times and in that room lots of times, but it is a little bit of a thing to be at that table. And I really admire the people who've never done that or who aren't in public life. There was a woman, she was great. Everybody cheered her. I thought she was awesome. She's a bartender who works at the stadium. And she's like a regular bartender, and her where she serves, they've nicknamed it Gia's Bar, and she has regulars. And she came in to talk about the terrible situation. And she was great. She's like, I've never spoken in public. And thinking about her and how many times I've been on the radio and TV, I thought, oh yeah, it takes a lot for people to come up here. So I really applaud all of those folks who do come to speak, because it takes something. I would say that I felt like maybe I was imagining it, but I could feel like a couple of councillors rolling their eyes at my lecturing them on transparency and that. But actually, to be honest, I got some really good questions from Councillor Sean Devine, naturally Sean Menard, who I believe asked every single delegate a question or two, almost all of them. And I heard later, actually, from a number of other councillors privately, including ones who are around that table, saying they agreed that, they appreciated that I said no one's corrupt or that it's a scam, but the engagement is bad, the communications are bad, it's not clear, the city does a bad job at that. I also felt a bit bad, actually, saying this report is not the best, right? Because there are people there involved in it. So Isabel Jasmine and even Wendy Stephenson, they've helped me with numbers and understanding budgets over many years. They're smart. And I thought Isabel Jasmine did a good job yesterday answering councillors' questions. I thought it was much clearer. But they're also not writers, right? They're not professional communicators. And so I think the city could really use that. So it's weird to talk about how it's lacking when the folks that are, involved in that report are sitting right there. So, and again, I've been critical in public many years as a reporter. So even that, but no, it was interesting. Actually, Mark Gowdy came by, told me I did a good job from OSEC. So that was weird. And I think that there was a real, I think there was acknowledgement that this could have been explained better to everyone.
I think to your credit, Joanna, you just hit it on what I was going to mention. You came out and said, I'm not here to say people are corrupt or this is a land grab by developers or a handout to developers, because often that's what councillors hear, right, in deputations, and it's easy for them to turn off. So I think it's that. I think that's a lesson for a lot of people who come in to talk to council. Maybe they feel that way though, so I shouldn't say I shouldn't tilt the way they feel. But I think a good way, it's a good lesson in communicating at that deputation table, because when you come in and accuse everyone of wrongdoing right away, people will tune out like immediately. And so I thought that was a pretty smart thing you did, Joanne. And we all knew that already, of course. You're an amazing journalist all those years, fair, balanced, accurate. So I mean, you have the credibility behind you as well, and the reputation. But I thought it was really smart for you to say that on the record
Thanks.
too at the table.
Thanks. Also, too, the city is now looking into whether they should have. I talked about how the RFP documents for the construction of event center and the arena. I think we talked about this last week. They were actually supposed to be released to the public, and I've been talking with staff, and they're not. They have not been released, and in fact, they're going to try to get them to councillors. And I'm just double checking whether that's actually the case. And I think they possibly made a mistake, so that might be something that's ongoing. So I'm glad to bring that up. I think these are issues that are really important to me. I know that might be silly within the big scheme of things that we're talking about, but I think it's an ongoing lesson we can all learn.
Great. Okay, let's turn to day 2 of the delegations, which was, I think, it's fair to say, was more focused on the financial issues. And John, I want to start with you, because what I noticed is that we as a city are having a very hard time even agreeing on the basic facts. You would think that there's numbers and it should be factual and everyone can agree on certain concepts, but that was not the case, right? I mean, even something as simple as, is this coming out of tax revenue? Is it not? Is it new money? Is it existing money? Like we can't even agree on that, right? And so what I noticed, and a number of councillors just kind of cherry picking whatever works for their argument, and then just sort of driving home about that. So, John, is there any way around this impasse?
I don't know, man. Like with big issues that come to City Hall, LRT, Lansdowne, big infrastructure projects, people will tend to cherry pick what they want to talk about and want to highlight. I mean, it goes to like making sure the city, on their end has a really solid communications plan up front about easily explaining the numbers. I know we've tried to do it, and Neil, I know you've done it, and whether on the pod or on helping Joanne and I too on the side. But I don't know what the answer is there. The city has their numbers. That's what we're going to roll with. We have questions about the risk, about whether these numbers are actually bulletproof. Of course, we don't think they are when it comes to the revenue. So how do we get over the discrepancy about how people are reading the numbers? I don't think we're going to before next Friday. I think
we disagree. I don't think Neil's numbers and the city's numbers disagree. It's a bunch of technicality and the way we want to talk about things because we want to spin it a certain way, right? That's the problem, I think.
Well, using the numbers and you're right. The spin about how you want to spin it. The numbers are the numbers. Neil, you use the numbers in your analysis from the city's report, right?
Correct.
And so the numbers are the numbers.
No, but that's true. But I still feel that we're moving into this world of alternative facts, right? And you remember that line from Kellyanne Conway, Trump's press person, like in Trump 1. And at the time, we were all kind of shocked by this concept of alternative facts. And now it's like, okay, yeah, we've all got alternative facts.
Great, yeah.
And you know what? And furthermore, actually, one of the councillors, Laura Dudas, even almost used those words with the PWHL when the PWHL executive was recounting the timeline of communications, that we're all entitled to our facts, right? And so, Joanne, I mean, is this where we're at? Are we going to get beyond this?
I don't know that we'll get beyond this, but we do need to push back on it. So, I think one of the most ridiculous parts of it was when people were talking about the $17.5 million they were going to put aside in revenues every year for 40 years to pay the debt, to service the $330 million debt. And I hope we could talk about that later, because that's another stupid story. That's another thing that the city, I think, was egregious on how they explained that earlier on. They explained it well yesterday, but not earlier. So one thing is people said, well, is that we're putting money into this reserve fund. Every year we put more and more money in until the mid 2030s, we get to 17.4 million. And every year we save that and we put it in some little,
cookie jar,
fake bucket. Yeah, that's right. This is Lansdowne on it. And people are like, well, isn't that tax money? Cyril Rogers, no, it's not from taxes. It's from other non-tax revenue. I get all kinds of things. Like, for example, the interest we get on our investments, $44 million or something. We take it from that. And he's like, literally, and then he said this, which shocked me. It's like, if you told me to prepare a budget with 0% tax increase, I could still find that money to put in that revenue bar. And you're thinking, okay, this is 1984 speak. Like, you want to, okay, fine. You've decided that money doesn't come directly from where you collect taxes, but it's all money. It's all revenue that the city is using. As Jessica Bradley says, it's not money falling out of the sky, right? Like, oh, look, I found this extra $1.3 million this year. I'm going to put it in the Lansdowne jar. So it's really about what the city decides are its choices, its priorities. It is deciding to use this additional money and put it aside for Lansdowne. That is how we should be talking about that. And whether it comes from taxes or other money, because obviously we could use that money to do some other thing in the city, right? But we're deciding to do it on this. So to say it doesn't affect taxpayers is silly. And it's a little bit like the revenue, the tax revenue uplift using that money. It's just a concept that we're just using to, I think, trick people. It's not that the money's not real, it's there, but of course it affects taxpayers.
But Joanne, I mean, we had the city's chief financial officer, Cyril Rogers, as you point out, say that, oh no, we're taking it from a different pot of money, so therefore it's having no impact on taxpayers. I mean, it's just like, it's ridiculous. And the fact that a senior city official would come to the table and say that is concerning to me. But you know what, we will come back a little bit on finances, and we've talked a lot about it, and I think we're going to talk a lot about it again next week. So could I maybe just pivot us a little bit and talk about some polling numbers that came out this morning? So again, this is the morning of Halloween, Friday, and there was a press release this morning. Councillor Sean Menard released some polling by Nanos Research. The question that was put to people across the city was, do you like the Lansdowne 2.0 proposal? And then the project was explained to them, and then, do you still like it? That was basically, so before and after the project's been explained to you, what is your view on it? And what they found was that before the project is explained, 64% of people support Lansdowne 2.0. After it's been explained, that number drops to 33%. Or so just think about the flip side of that. 28% initially oppose it. Once it's explained to them, that rises to 60% of the population oppose it. So, John, what's your take on this? Like fresh off the presses polling.
Fresh off the presses, so I haven't really dug deeply into it, but I noticed I always like going to the methodology first when I see polls. And this was done by Nanos, by the way, so a very reputable pollster in Ottawa, no doubt about it. And so just looking at the quick methodology, 764 residents in an online, it's called a non-probability online survey, which means they can't put a margin of error on it. But if it was a probability type survey, it would be 3 to 4 percentage points either way. Anyway, I just want to put that out there, that I like looking at the methodology before talking about the polling. And look, if people, it says what it says. People are very skeptical, it seems, about the project. Now, I like looking at the questions too. One of the questions that jumped out at me talked about the arena, and it talked about decreasing the size of the arena when the PWHL has so many more people coming out. But it didn't speak to the current big tenant for the arena, which is the Ottawa 67s, which is actually having, about average 4,000, I think what it was last year in attendance for games. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure how the questions were developed. So that's a question I would have too. I don't think Sean Menard will necessarily be on the hot seat over this, because there's no mechanism at council to question other councillors. But I mean, I do just kind of take these things with a grain of salt, because, as you say, it's commissioned by the councillor, and I'd want to dig into it a little bit more before I can make some conclusions based off it.
Sure. Joanne, what's your take on these polling numbers?
Yeah. So 2 things. One, sure, once people find out about the amount of debt that we're taking out to redevelop it, of course, big numbers always sound, alarming, and in no context are like, oh my God, we can't borrow $330 million. I would say, though, in all of those explanations, it did not actually mention that, yes, we're taking out $330 million, but there is a possibility of recouping some of that, right, through revenue. We might not be paying all of that. In fact, we almost certainly won't be paying all of it, but how much we are going to, what kind of discount on the payment we're going to get from revenues is still to be determined, from the future. But so I think that part was missing. If we're going to just tell people the whole thing, if we're going to tell people the facts, let's tell them all the facts. But I was also struck by the amount of people unhappy about shrinking the arena, even before they were told about the PWHL's terms, right? And also the shrinking of the green space. So, you know, yeah, we could dig into the methodology and all of that, but I think in general, you know, I don't want to say whether it's, you know, precise or not, but I think in general we can take from that poll what we've been hearing about, and that is like people are kind of skeptical about what this plan is like, you know, they have questions. What is it all about? And so I think that's the big takeaway I've taken from this week, right? And that is, I don't actually think people change their minds very much, but like whether they're for it or against, but I think they have a lot more questions and a lot less trust in how this has been made.
And especially after previous projects and LRT, right? People have been talking about LRT a lot in the same sentence as Lansdowne Park. And so like what's the phrase, twice shot,
twice bitten, once shy, or something?
Right, something like that. I don't know. So this is like our second time, you know, after LRT possibly. And that's what makes, I think, more people even skeptical about a big infrastructure project like Lansdowne Park.
What about you, Neil? What did you think of the poll?
Well, look, I mean, I didn't find the results at all surprising. First of all, you know, there's no doubt that you ask people, do you want to do this big project to fix a sports stadium? We know this from across the world, right? People are skeptical about spending money on sports stadiums when any city's got all sorts of other priorities that it needs to be putting money towards. I don't know that this is going to change a lot of minds around the council table. I think those that like the data will use it. Those that don't will just ignore it. But it does, you know, it actually makes me think of a quote that I heard around the council table yesterday from Tim Tierney. So Tim Tierney he mentioned that he'd been getting a lot of correspondence on Lansdowne. And the phrase that he used, I have to say, I quite like this phrase. He said, this was like correspondence was based on the spaghetti that's out there, which good luck.
Italian. I take offense at using delicious food in that negative manner.
But what it does make me think, and it also comes back to this previous discussion we've had around alternative facts, is can we really agree on anything? And is it the public is going to go with whoever they like their gut tells them to trust. And so I don't think the city is looking particularly trustful at this point after their interactions with the Ottawa charge, with a lot of these questions that are coming up. And so quite frankly, I just wonder, for these pro-Lansdowne advocates, like around the council table, is this putting them in a very difficult position? Like John, I mean, it's much easier to defend. It's much easier for someone like me to come out and say $1 billion or $500 million boondoggle versus someone trying to explain the intricacies of property tax uplift and waterfall distributions.
You're no kidding. And I'm glad I'm not a councillor to have to vote on this and try to it's tough to understand as a reporter doing Lansdowne 1.0. It was like this new waterfall scheme, and how does that work? And what do you mean, like revenue distribution? And so it was very complicated even as a reporter to explain it.
We had a giant binder. Sorry to interrupt, John. I claimed I wasn't going to, but that was a lie. Like, do you remember we got from the city those giant binders? I remember having to take it out all the time to look through. What does that mean again? Like it was really, really hard. We would have like one-on-ones with the city manager because it was so complicated. I mean, they were trying to get us to understand it, to be fair, but like, so how is anyone supposed to understand how their money's being spent? Oh, sorry,
no,
John.
And people are trying, right? People like yourself, Neil, right, are coming in and saying, hey, like you have experience with numbers. Here's my expertise, how I'm reading the numbers here, what you need to be talking about. And other people are doing the same. But boy, is it tough. It's a tough file for the average citizen spaghetti is actually a great comparison. I wish it was more like bow tie pasta, where you can just pick one at a time, but spaghetti, as delicious as it is, can be super tangled.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? And you know what? The other thing that I found with these numbers is like, there'll be something that I'll find that I think is a bit unusual, and I'll present that. And I'll notice that certain councillors might try to follow up with that and ask questions of staff around the committee table. But that's just, you know, like that table just doesn't work for that level of detail, right? Like you're trying to take this very complex issue, then boil it down to a very simple question. And then, you know, staff can just reply, you know, just give you a reply that, you know, doesn't even barely sounds English, right? And what do you do with that? So
well, sometimes that's the difference between like the time between the committee meetings and council. Sometimes those things are worked out if people remember. Yeah.
Okay. You know, one thing we haven't talked about yet, and is the housing element to this proposal. So why don't we spend a minute on that? And Joanne, coming back to Tim Tierney, because a few weeks ago, he was very vocal about this idea of advocating again for a third tower. And there's a lot of big talk, but did that come up over the last couple of weeks?
There was nothing. I was like, oh, big talk from Tim Tierney. He's like, I can't remember if it was planning. I can't remember what it was at, but he's like, we need more. Oh, it was at the Taywin discussion, because he was the one actually who walked on that very controversial Taywin motion. I believe we gave it the gold medal of walk-on motions here at this podcast. And at the time he was talking about, we need more housing of every kind. We got to expand the boundary. I wish we had expanded it more, but we also need buildings, and we need infill, and we need towers. And then he said, and I'm not done with the third tower at Lansdowne. And apparently he was, because I heard nothing about it. Right. And so that third tower, I don't know. I remember being on before this podcast existed, being at a citizens info session on Lansdowne. They're like, and I was like, this third tower, it's too crowded. And they quickly took it out. And I think most people would say, well, we'd pay a little more to not have that tower. I know there are some people who are cynical, who are like, oh, they always put that there so they could make it look better when they took it out. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But there was no talk from Tim Tierney about anything. Maybe it'll come to council. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it.
You mean another walk-on?
Another walk-on. I cannot have,
that's
not happening. The mayor's office is not going to let that happen. So not happening.
Okay.
So actually, I hope it should happen, because that would be hilarious. But
okay. So John, I want to turn to you and ask about another related housing issue, which is the valuation of these air rights. Okay, because this is something that the more you look at it, the stranger it becomes. It
makes
right?
no sense.
Yeah, right. Oh, so just let me set this up. So we are told that a developer has paid $65 million for the rights to build 2 towers in the sky. So they don't own the earth, they don't own the ground, they just have the right to build in the sky. At the same time, if you remember back, we have the Ottawa Senators the Ottawa Senators bought 11 acres of land at Le Breton Flats for about $30 million. So half the price.
Yeah.
Okay, 33.5. So sort of half the price, and they're getting 11 acres, and they get the ground also. So how on earth, have you heard anything that reconciles these two? Because these two numbers seem to be off in different universes.
Are you saying that NCC gave the Sens a sweetheart deal on the land?
I actually did a little, because I was having an argument with someone who said, oh, the NCC gave them a really good deal. And I went back, John, you'll remember covering this, and we live near it, the Westboro Convent lands. Those were $12 million. And they were, if you put on inflation, they were just a little under per acre what the Sens paid at the NCC. So I think, I'm now taking on John's answer, but I talked to developers. They're like, I would not have paid that. I don't know what they're doing. There's no way Trinity was going to pay that, obviously. So that's why they lost. So John, over to you.
Well, no, to your point, Neil, I think what you're getting at are is this it's just a crazy number that people are, or this corporation's paying? And are they actually going to, I guess the next question is, will they actually follow through with the development? Because that's a problem for the city, because it flows into the revenue scheme and how everything's going to be paid for. I think Joanne and Neil, you both talked about they just need to put up $1 million up front to get themselves into the game, and whether they build or not, that's the next question. We hope we need someone to build, right, for the revenue. But that's what I think that I know one of the deputations, Carolyn McKenzie, right, the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, was talking about, and she did a really good job. And I think it's a fair question about whether that valuation is going to be, is it going to follow through? Is something going to be built? That's what people want to know, because it's really important for the whole scheme to follow through, especially for the city.
Well, I want to just say, I think there was an extra $10 million that Mirabella put in because they're going to be using the city garage. And here's how it is explained to me by some finance people at the city. And that is, the original way they were going to build the garage, we were going to build 140, well, we were going to own 140 spaces, but we were going to lease it to the developer. And then over time, we would make money. Except at the beginning, we would be as a city, we'd be falling $600,000 short or something like that every year that we'd be covering. But under planning law, you can't do that, because that would be bonusing to the developer. So now the way it's financed, we break even so the developer's putting $10 million up front for air rights, for the parking, so that we are breaking even on that. So it's kind of just a moving money around thing. I know that's confusing, but still, so if you just take out that 10 million, for the parking, it's still $55 million of air rights, right? And you have to think, like, when you get a bid that's too good to be true, is it? Like, yeah. So, and it's interesting. The other bidder to build the podium and the towers was Trinity. They are the second partner in OSEG with Roger Greenberg of Minto. And they would not say what their bid was, right? I mean, it's interesting because on the construction of the arena and event center, we saw what all the three shortlisted people bid. We saw the prices, but for the podium and retail towers, we did not see that, and I wonder why.
Well, that's a great point, Joanne, because what the city said was that that's commercially confidential. We can't say what the Trinity bid was. And yet on the other side, no problem, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if that is.
We need to push back on that point.
Yeah. So, okay, I mean, time will tell. Like within 5 years, we're going to know whether that was a crazy deal or not.
Right. Okay. I want to step back and ask both of you, when that document arrived on your desktop, like the Lansdowne 2.0 proposal, tell me one thing in there that you saw that really surprised you. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, I guess. Like, one thing that I keep thinking about the park of Lansdowne Park versus the things that are at Lansdowne Park that you need money to participate in. So the event center, the football stadium, restaurants, shopping, etc. Like, when having like a young child, I like to go to young Lansdowne Park to participate in the park activities that you don't have to pay for and hang out there. So I know there's been discussion about green space, loss of green space, but like, one thing that I kind of wish I knew more about was, what are we going to do with now the shrinking park part of Lansdowne Park, and how are we going to animate that and make that an interesting place for people to go and hang out? And I think there's some great first steps there. Look, I think the rink in the winter is great. I think that basketball court's really nice. The playground, I'm not quite sure about. I know Councillor Sean Menard talk about the water feature there that people, I know we have treated it as a splash pad that's treacherous for kids to play in. So the lack of trees, and I know the design is going to talk about more trees, more electricity for festivals, which is wonderful. But I'm kind of interested in knowing what's going to be available for people who don't want to pay a lot of money to go participate in an event at Lansdowne Park, just to hang out there and just be one with the park, I guess. So that's one thing that surprised me, I guess, in the discussion. And the other thing I'll say very quickly.
You're cheating.
I know, but I want to say, I've come around to this idea of like the roof missing from the north side stands. At the beginning, I was like, you know what? Football people are hardy. But the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's really nice to have that roof on that north side stand. And I'm thinking about the new stadium that's being built in Buffalo. It's super expensive, but it's going to be, protecting a bit for the fans. But the field itself will have the elements still. So I think if I had to center on two things, those are the two things I think of when I.
Well, John, on that last point, I don't know if you caught it, and I just remember this because I listen to the committee meetings when I'm out walking my dog, right? So you do something that triggers me, and I think, where I was with my dog on the like on that corner. But on that point, I remember I think it wasn't the mayor. The city staff said, "Well, we've built the north stands, but we could always put a roof on later." And we've designed it so we could put a roof on later. Like, come on, is that
doing that?
In what world does anyone believe that?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Joanne, what surprised you?
Yeah, well, I think we've talked about it a lot because to me it was that we are saving $17.4 billion every year for 40 years to pay $1 million. I have used all the wrong numbers today. This is good podcasting. But I'm cheating too because we talked about that a lot. So I'm actually going to say something else because the fact we were saving that money every year for 40 years, weirdly responsible, but we didn't talk about it. And I find that disturbing. But I was also say what I was really surprised when I first opened it and read it quickly was that we are increasing the municipal accommodation tax by 1 percentage point, and that we just we're just taking some of it and putting it to Lansdowne. There's no discussion on that, no committee discussion. How did that happen? I mean, I guess it's good because it alleviates, that is actually one of the revenue streams that is almost guaranteed unless everyone stops coming to Ottawa and staying in hotels and Airbnbs. But I was like, was it the mayor chatted with his friends at Tourism Ottawa and the hotel organization and dreamt this up? Like, I just found it surprising, I suppose I would say. And I just thought, like, where did that come from? No one's ever discussed this before. And I think, John, you said either last week or the week before, maybe last week, it's been a long week, but to like, oh, can we just use that money for whatever we want? Like, how about Byward Market? How about other things? And so I thought, where's the transparency in that? I was wondering why that happened, but people are happy to have the money. They don't have to charge locals for. So we just took it.
Well, can I tell you what the one thing that surprised me about this proposal? That was that we are losing that piece of public art on the berm. You know, it's called moving surfaces. What we're hearing now in the staff report, and this was really buried quite deep in, is that it will be decommissioned. Now, I know there was a motion at committee to see what staff could do about this, but I think we, I don't think anyone's got high hopes for that. So I was really disappointed to read that, because I find that is an iconic part of the park of Lansdowne Park, and I'll be really disappointed to see it go.
I have to say that I had missed that. And when I heard the artists delegate at committee, I found it really heartbreaking. Like, I thought, oh, this is terrible. And I think a lot of other councillors maybe had not realized that because some of the questions they asked.
Yeah.
Since
you guys both went with two surprises, can I just give you a second one real quick? Yeah. And that is, I was actually quite surprised, coming back to parking, that we are now talking about putting a 3-story parking garage above ground. Oh, yeah. Sort of below. They say below the new North Stands. But who knows what this is going to look like, right? Like, is it going to be something that's tucked away that no one even knows there's a parking garage there? Or is this going to be like that parking lot that's going up at Dow's Lake, right, for the new Civic Hospital? We just don't know. And it's, again, one of these things that you really had to read the report very carefully to even understand what was happening. So I'm a bit concerned about that.
Good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lightning round. We have been talking a lot about Lansdowne and only Lansdowne.
Lansdowne all the time.
I want to just throw in a few other topics, but we're doing it as lightning round really fast. So, John, I'm going to start with you. The Ottawa Citizen has been on an extended campaign to get Byward Market revitalization back into the limelight. And I approve their efforts in that front. But in fact, the city approved a public realm plan in 2020. So they've got the plan. They just need the money to do it. And there were also public consultations on it, I believe, last year. So
in the summer, I went to some.
Okay. Yeah. John, you've brought up the Byward Market on this pod a number of times, as Joanne just mentioned. But is the market basically getting ignored here because Lansdowne is sucking all the oxygen out of the room?
Yeah, the market and every other city issue that's happening. Homelessness, like social issues, you name it. The budget, exactly. The budget will be the next thing, right? And so things like Byward Market will fall, like everything will fall into that bucket. But I do believe, look, the city wants to do something with the Byward Market. They have a plan. I know I saw some reporting by the Citizen this week already. One business owner, anyway, is taking issue with the parking, the loss of parking potentially in the market. And I think that's going to be a narrative that's going to percolate for all time, anywhere, but certainly in the market. But yes, Neil. It's taking the heat off Lansdowne, but because it's the big anniversary coming up for the Byward, I'm sure something's in the works to have something big happen within the next year, or a big announcement anyway.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to change the rules midstream here. Lightning round is now 90 seconds.
That's my lightning.
You did it, John. You managed to get it just in time. Okay, next question for you, Joanne. And I have to admit, this is one that really boiled my blood when I got this. I got an email from the city. This as did many other taxpayers. Anyone that pays their property tax bill by direct debit is now being charged 55 cents for the privilege of doing that. And what upsets me about this is that if I wanted to, I could take my property tax bill, I could walk down to City Hall or take the bus down to City Hall, I could go up to a cashier, pay my bill by check or whatever means, and I could do that for free. And yet when I do the automated approach that should cost me nothing and cost the city nothing, they want to charge me 55 cents. So is that appropriate? What's going on here?
That's for me. Oh, I thought I was getting another question, but yeah, it doesn't look great. I think they do actually pay a fee for that. I think the city is just recouping its own fees. It's not like it's making money on that, and I think it's for it is for pre-authorized payments. I don't think it's like, when like I pay my tax bill online through my banking app, like the way I pay a bill. I'm not sure you're getting charged on that. I think it's like if money comes out automatically through a pre-authorized payment, because they are no longer accepting Interact cards, and they're not going to charge you $1.50 anymore for paying your parking online. But they already pay. For example, if you want to pay your taxes with your Visa and get 1 million points, you actually have to pay a big fee for that, because the city pays a fee. So I think they're just trying to recoup their what it costs them. Now, it is at $820,000 a year in a $5 billion budget. And one thing you have to ask is, like, having pre-authorized payments are probably good. Like, I'm pretty sure they like that. So like, you don't have to worry about people remembering it. So is it something they might want to swallow to make it actually worth, to encourage people to do that? Again, I'm not sure that 55 cents is going to discourage people, but yeah, for people who are paying attention, they're like, are you kidding me? Something else. It's like a little dinky thing. I didn't think it was as big an issue as you do. I know you were mad, but I'm like, I get it. I get why people are like, they're being nickeled and dimed, literally.
And a million points, you say, Joanne? I have to look into that. 1 million points.
I don't know what your taxes are, but like, well, I know.
All right, John, I'm going to turn back to you. Next question is, so we didn't get to this last week. This is an issue that I thought was quite important, but we were so busy with Lansdowne we couldn't talk about it. But I don't want to leave it hanging. And that's that the city of Ottawa made a decision that it was not going to press charges against 2 councillors and the advocacy organization Horizon Ottawa for election spending violations. So those 3, that organization, those 2 councillors, were found to have violated the election campaign laws, although it was recognized that they were very minor mistakes that were made in the bookkeeping. So I'm going to assume that, like, we all can agree that this was the right decision to make. But what I want to ask you about, like, does this point to a provincial law that probably needs to be adjusted, because it seems to be very open to abuse? And I just worry that it's going to put this chilling effect. So what do you think, John?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is here, to be honest with you, because there needs to be some kind of a process in place. Like, we have the Elections Compliance Committee, which is, organized by the city, but arm's length from the city, to look into these complaints. But anyone can put in a complaint, and there's no money that they don't have to put in an application fee or anything like that, as far as I know. I didn't know this previously, guys, but I saw some reporting suggest that the person who made the complaint some years ago had to pay for the audit too, once upon a time. Which, I'm not a big fan of that.
That's too much, yeah.
That's crazy. But I mean, I think that there maybe needs to be something done at the provincial level. It is provincial law. Because, as you say, Neil, something just doesn't pass a sniff test on what's going on.
Yeah.
Or if something is actually not what's the word I'm thinking of? If this is not a good podcast day for me. I can't remember any English words. But if someone is vexatious, right? If they're always, if it's a frivolous complaint, then maybe there should be a penalty. If later you found, like, okay, you're just going after people for no reason, that there should be a penalty.
Joanne, last question to you. So there was the nominations, or the inductees, rather, I should say, for the Order of Ottawa announced this week. 15 people were announced, including his former worship, Jim Watson. It was, now Mark Sutcliffe was part of that selection committee. Was this, this, I don't know, to me this seemed a little bit of an odd choice. So, like, too soon? What's your take on it?
Too soon, man. Just too soon. And just weird timing. So first of all, okay, yeah, I get, you know what? Jim Watson was mayor for 12 years. That is a record in Ottawa. And I'm sure he'll be remembered for things like starting the LRT and Lansdowne. But right now, those projects are like fairly controversial still. So it's a weird time to give them to them. So just a reminder to folks, the LRT inquiry, of which I covered every minute of, like, I was there every single minute. And it did not go well for Jim Watson. He was accused of lying under oath, of withholding information from the rest of council about the final testing of Confederation Line during the trial running, and that he personally, like, pressured people to put it into, like, it got put into service because of political pressure too soon, specifically from him. So at this moment anyway, he is not remembered fondly for his connection to the LRT. And then it's just so weird that we're talking about Lansdowne 2.0 now, and also giving Jim Watson this citation, because we are here because Jim Watson and his council made a boneheaded decision in Lansdowne 1.0 back in 2012, not even to go ahead. If they wanted to go ahead, that was fine. But they made it in our usual Ottawa half-assed way, where we didn't want to spend the full amount to actually upgrade the stands and the arena, which everybody knew had to be done eventually. And they wanted to present this fallacy that, though, the whole thing was revenue neutral and it wasn't going to cost taxpayers anything, which was not true and a lie, and was very obvious within like 10 minutes. And so, you know, we wouldn't be here right now if they'd actually done it properly the first time. So again, and you know, Jim Watson has actually already admitted, yeah, we probably should have done it then, right? So the timing of this is odd. I would have waited a couple more years myself. And also for the political critics of Mark Sutcliffe, who say he's just sort of a nicer version of Jim Watson. Again, this doesn't have a great look, but maybe he doesn't care. So I'm sure that was more than a minute, but that's too much. Too much for 1 minute. Come on, even 90 seconds, not enough time.
It is. All right, that's it for this week. We will be back next week, but of course, the final vote on Lansdowne is on Friday. We normally record on Fridays at 1:00. That vote will not have been taken by 1:00 on next Friday, so we're going to record a little bit later. We don't know when, whether it'll be on the weekend or the Monday, but we will be there to tell you all about
Friday
it.
Recording. Just cocktail recording.
Okay. Now there's just one last thing about. Yeah, you're serious, aren't you, Joanne?
Very much.
There's one last thing about Lansdowne, and that is, I just want to remind people that if you would like to be heard on Lansdowne, there is a Lansdowne 2.0 public forum that is happening on Monday, the 3rd of November at 6:30 p.m. in Barrhaven at the Salvation Army Barrhaven Community Church and Community Center. Okay.
Prince of Wales, right?
Pardon?
And it's on Prince of Wales Drive, is it not?
It's near Fallowfield Station.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure exactly, but you can find more information about the event at betterottawa.ca. We'd encourage people to come out. Joanne will be moderating the discussion. It's being hosted by Better Ottawa, so I'll be speaking too. And yeah, we'd love to see you there. It's participate in person or virtually. There's a hybrid option available too. Okay. We have broken the 1 hour sound barrier, by the way.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Sorry, everyone.
All right. We will be back in about a week's time. Until then, I'd like to thank John and Joanne. I'd like to thank all of our listeners. This has been the Better Ottawa Municipal Panel.